All right, today we're going to actually turn on our microphone when we start, which is pretty exciting. Hi, I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTrain.tv. I'm here with actually Margaret, who's helping us a little bit today. Very exciting. This is FMTrain.tv, where we create great, awesome FileMaker training, and we pretty much do it all the time, every day. So real quick on an upcoming broadcast schedule, I'm going to press the button right here. You can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. We have today is kind of an interesting kind of conversation, and then tomorrow is a conversation on anchor buoy relational design. And it's kind of interesting because you have people who invented anchor buoy relational design, and then they decide that they don't need it anymore because they're beyond needing it because they're so amazingly awesome. And I've yet to actually find a valid reason for dumping it other than people like to move the furniture around. I used to, for those of you guys who knows Ryan Correa, my sales guy who helps do volume licensing, things like that, to help people connect them with licensing. When he was working in the office, he had his own office, and at our Santa Clara office, he had his own like enclosed office because he's so loud we'd have to close the door in there. And every 3 weeks he would move the furniture because he just wanted to move and reconfigure, so the desks and the shelves and the chairs and the cabinets, and he would reconfigure it, kind of like a Tetris game where you're trying to figure out how the pieces fit together. And so every 3 weeks he would move the furniture. So there are people out there who just like to move the furniture because they become bored with life and they want to do something different. I'm going to make the case that probably you shouldn't do that with a relational schematic or relational design as part of your FileMaker solution, because being boring and predictable helps everyone. It's very awesome when you do that. And that's kind of what tomorrow's about. That's for if you're like a 20 or 30 year experienced senior developer and you want to move the furniture. If you're brand new and you're trying to learn how the hell you build a FileMaker low-code application and have it scale and have it make sense and maybe move into more of a pro-code mode where you're doing more serious work with it, then you need to know about Anchor Buoy, and you need to endorse it, embrace it, love it, and pretend like it's your own personal baby kitty. Or some of you are not really good pet animal people, but for those of you who love animals, pretend it's your most favorite pet, and you're going to give it a name and pet it and feed it and all that kind of stuff. So Friday, long-distance server updates with Jacob Taylor. I'm not entirely sure what that's all about, but Jacob says it's a thing, and so we're going to do a broadcast on it, so I will be learning from that. And then next week we've got copy records with Nick Hunter. I'm not entirely sure what that's all about, except it's some sort of trick. Nick has always got a trick. It always starts off pretty basic, like, this is air. Oxygen, breathe oxygen. And then he goes, and then the Neo scores him the latency, and you're like, your head blows up. So that's probably what that will be. It'll go from oxygen to everyone's head explodes. That will be Monday. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to go back and do emergency procedures. So you're flying along in your 737 and your right engine catches fire and explodes. What do? You break out your pilot in-flight emergency checklist and you start working through the checklist. And so that's why you have your little safety border around that. That's what it looks like in a pilot manual. So we're going to be discussing that. Why? Because there are a lot of IT people out there who don't believe in emergency procedures. They're like, dude, we're flying with it's like if you were flying with Southwest Airlines and you flew the jet like you stole it. It's like that one guy up in Seattle actually was a maintenance guy, got bummed out, kind of bored, and he was tired of moving the furniture, so he just thought he'd steal the plane and do loop-de-loops with it. Found out that this Dash 11, it was a Embracer. I think Embracer is a turboprop. He did loops, rolls, all sorts of stuff before he crashed and killed himself. But he was literally flying it like he stole it because he had stolen it. So today's broadcast, that's what's going on there. If you want to know more about what we're doing in terms of buying the training and buying the bundles and supporting the channel, because this is free content, all that stuff you just saw over here, it's all free. Totally free. There's no money involved. But if you'd like to support the channel to make sure we don't go out of business and we still have enough money to keep the lights on, the little lighty things that are lighting me over here, and the internet, make sure you purchase our on-demand video training. We do these in bundles. Someone came to me and says, well, I want the bundle for FileMaker 17. I got this message this morning from one of my tech support. We want the bundle for 17. There is no bundle for a specific version. When you buy the bundle, you get everything. Let me show you what everything looks like. Here is everything. Right here is what everything looks like. This is a video player here. When you go up here to select the course, these are what we consider the current courses, the current content, current versions of the platform. Here are the legacy ones. You get all this for a whole year, right? It's pretty awesome, right? And you get all the updates, which is more important. So as we shoot new updates, things like that, you get that in here. You also have easy access to live streams. So as we shoot the live streams, you come over here to live streams. These are these conversations. So you can click over here and watch the live stream. It's so amazing. It's like, oh my gosh, who is that person and why are they so awesome? Who is that amazing guy right there? So, and why is he giving us free training? So anyway, some of the stuff in here is free. The daily live streams are free. The Nick Lean Design, these two things are free, but the rest of this you have to purchase. And it's kind of what we're talking about today a little bit. So I want to welcome Wally from the Netherlands, Michael Gravel, Carol from Carol. So Carol, today is a good one for you. Carol from Oakland, Stu, Agent Chevy. Agent Chevy said he was taking notes for Claris the other day, and I said, do you work for Claris? And that was a very awkward long silence. So maybe Claris is in there taking notes. I don't know. Scott Kane, Jeremy's here. Hey, Jer, right? So when are you going to post like Friday, right? Because we just showed you're not posting. So people are doing that. Let's see. Just pushed it now. So yeah. So the version 9 will put or Friday's live stream will post here shortly. So welcome everyone who's here. So what is today about? So today is an interesting conversation. So it's a conversation that really doesn't apply to any other platform in the world. And the reason is that there's this kind of fundamental problem. So we are, if I click here, I'm going to go to the FileMaker Pro 19. It's the current for the current product. Claris, of course, hasn't told me what they're going to call the next product. They'll just probably ship it, and then people will wonder why my training is so horribly out of date. It's because no one bothered to tell us or anyone else what the hell they're going to call the new product or what they're doing with it. So anyway, so so it's how to keep your vendors guessing as to what you're doing, right? It's secret Apple games, right? So there we go. So Agent Chevy, make a note that we don't have a clue what they're doing, and they might want to let us know. So in here is what we call the Pro 19 course. Down here, these are the topics over here on the left. Very, very good topic. Starts kind of at the beginning, basic and fundamentals, moves its way up progressively, more advanced. The problem is that it's hard to be perfectly progressively more advanced because you would learn, fields and relationships first, but then you might do a little bit of scripting, then you'd go back to something else. And so you kind of learn a lot of topics in parallel, right? It makes sense. And so down here, after you get past writing scripts and things like that, is performance optimization. This was the performance set of videos that we had previously. There were some other ones in here too. This is the new official section right here of performance videos. So if you see the B on here, these are brand new videos. We've been slowly rolling these out for the last 4 or 5 months, and there's like 1 or 2 more that are going to get loaded up down here. But here's the problem it's not a problem. It's a problem, but it's a good problem to have. The FileMaker platform is so awesome and so popular and has been around so long that we have a problem the other competitors don't have. Mostly the biggest competitor to the FileMaker platform is a company that I think has been around for 3 years or something, or 4 years, right? And they don't have the revenue. They give the product away for free, and it has a ton of limitations. But you can do like the first day or two is easier to work with than FileMaker, and then after about 4 or 5 days, you hit the wall and explode. And so at some point we'll probably talk about that a little bit more. But people like, where's the competitor? Listen, if there was a product better than FileMaker, we wouldn't be talking about FileMaker. We'd be talking about the better product. But it's the best product in market at this point, and there's nothing really that's kind of close. There are people who do individual things better, like, oh, I can define a field better, or I can make a relational diagram that's more easy to understand better. But there's no one who offers the whole package. That's why we're here. That's why this platform still rocks after 30 plus whatever years it's been. And so the problem we have historically is that there have been these things called developer conferences. Now, Claris, the management team, in their infinite wisdom, decided not to call it a developer conference anymore because, hey, it would really suck if we were having an event and everyone knew what was going to happen there. They call it Claris Engage, which is marketing's way of saying that they're trying to engage with the developers or with the customers or something, I guess. Anyway, anyone who's involved at going to Devcon has been around for more than a year and a half, knows it's called Devcon. We still call it Devcon because other companies call it Devcon. It's there's an Oracle developer conference, there's a Salesforce developer conference. Salesforce developer conference, they call it Dreamforce, right? Because you dream of being a rich billionaire because they're expensive, right? So with FileMaker, we never dream of being billionaires because it's not as expensive as Salesforce, despite some of you whining endlessly about the pricing, right? Just it's not relatively that expensive. It's more expensive than the inferior products in the market. So what is the issue? The issue is that we go to Devcon. Devcons have been going on for 25 plus years, and most of these Devcon events were recorded one way or the other. And ever since the beginning of dawn of time, there have been performance videos and these events. And historically, what would happen is that they would do a performance video, and the next year you go to Devcon, and they would assume that the people there who were there the year before, don't know why they would assume that, but they would assume that, and they go, okay, so we're picking up this conversation from last year, we're going to take the conversation farther. And I'm like, okay. So then you would find the recording from the previous year, you'd watch that, then you'd watch the next one, so you could watch them in sequence, and they would kind of tell this performance story. Then Claris, being Claris, people that actually don't build that many FileMaker applications themselves, they don't think about this, right? They just go, well, these old videos don't have our new logo on them, so let's just get rid of them. So they go to YouTube and they destroy the videos and they get rid of them. So I have videos that go back most of 10 plus years, right? Performance videos that go back at least that far, actually almost back to 2005. Most of them you can't get anymore on YouTube because they have been like scrubbed by Claris because it doesn't have the proper logo. Maybe instead of calling it a FileMaker custom app, which is the current approved terminology, we called it a FileMaker solution, or heaven forbid, we use the word database, right? And so understand that the marketing gets in there who controls this stuff because the videos are not considered training. They're considering marketing materials, right? To bring people in. And we don't like videos that confuse people or that use the wrong word, so let's delete it. So we have, so then people go to Devcon and they say, and the people that present at Devcon are doing a great job, understand, and they're given 90 minutes and they do that. And they might have 2 or 3 performance videos, but they'll say, okay, last year we talked about this, so this year we're not going to really talk about it, we're going to take the next step forward. And then you go back to the last year, maybe you find it, then it says, oh, go back the year before that, and it's not there anymore. So the problem has been, it's a unique problem with the FileMaker platform, is that the platform is so awesome, it's been around so long that we actually have this kind of legacy training problem that goes on. And so there is no coherent single location to get performance training from beginning to end because it's always based upon, well, I'll do these videos because I was doing that. We did some videos in here because some of the videos were on YouTube and then the videos are gone. Gentleman yesterday comes to me and he goes, I'm stuck, right? And so what he was technically stuck on was many-to-many relationship with, whether you call them joins or not, but a join tables with many relationships. And I go, well, have you checked out video number on our training? He goes, oh no, I'm just watching YouTube because everything I need to learn is on YouTube. No, it's not. It's never all the video that you want to learn is not on YouTube because it keeps getting pulled down. YouTube is the Wild West. Besides, you go on YouTube and YouTube knows I like to fly. I'm a pilot. And they promptly start telling me about the most amazing flying. And before long, I was thinking about FileMaker doing my day job. Before long, I'm clicking on kitten videos and how to auto-rotate a Hughes 500 down in Arizona at sea level. And I'm like, man, that footage is really amazing. I can't. And then I'm like, wait, why was I here? Oh yeah, I was trying to do my day job of FileMaker. So you got to understand that YouTube's job is to keep you there, and if they could give you money and cash and whatever your heart's desires, so power, money, drugs, whatever it would, to keep you in front of your YouTube video all day, they would do it. But they can't force feed you drugs to the internet, so they just visually stimulate you, hoping that's your drugs, right? So we went and we shot our own. Let me get rid of that. Where'd our video FileMaker go? Oops, down here. So this is our video player. So we went and reshot this, and we took into account the basics from day one of the videos. And to be honest with you, with FileMaker, some things have kind of improved a little bit with the newest version of server. We will address that at some point. But really, what you need to know hasn't changed because the product hasn't fundamentally changed that much. So if you go in here and you take a look at the videos that we have, right, you'll start to see information on how it does this, what the learning curve looks like, how we're going to learn this. And there I am making a lot of noise. Let me mute myself there. I'm going to mute myself way down, right? So we talk about this, we set the stage, and so we're going through this on demand. We're doing it sequentially, assuming that you've never been to Devcon, or there are no YouTube videos that you can find, because any YouTube videos that you find will be out of context. Because to the whole conversation in performance, if you could learn, if I could tell everyone. I could explain to you performance once. Like if I explain to you how to be a rocket scientist, and I'm explaining you the calculus, and I did it once through, and you absorbed it perfectly on one time. Let's assume that you're that great. You could learn everything you know about performance in 5 to 10 hours. Okay. Now the problem is most of us don't catch it on the first pass. There are a couple of people who can. I know a couple of them, but for the most part, most of us watch a video. We catch. If it's really advanced stuff, we'll get a quarter of it, maybe a third of it. So we have to watch the video 2 or 3 times. That's the benefit of these. You watch them 2 or 3 times. But these videos are specifically engineered step by step with the assumption that you watched the video right before it. And that video is there. It is available. It hasn't been removed from YouTube. So we built all this. And so it's not so much here saying go buy this, although all of you should own it because that's how we pay for the channel. This gentleman yesterday didn't even have it. He thought he could learn everything from YouTube, and unfortunately I had to explain to him that it doesn't work that way. So Megan points out that as she watches the video, she takes notes. She posted this the other day. She had taken, with a color-coded ink pen, she'd taken a big fat stack of notes. It's not so much you will ever go back to read the notes, but if you sit and take the time to write the notes, you help commit it to memory in your head, which is what you need. When you're building FileMaker, you want to do it quickly and fast. You want to have the data in here mostly, and then just reference things obliquely like, oh, I can't remember the get function that tells me how to determine if I have an M1 processor. How would I do that? And you go into help and you find that obscure bit of information. So it's very important to understand to commit as much of it you can to memory, and then if you don't commit the finer details, you know where they're at. That's actually one of my greatest skills after 31 years. It's not that I know everything, but I've once upon a time heard it. Like I was watching some people today complaining about Claris's version numbering. Very, very, very senior people, in fact, the most senior people in the FileMaker community, trying to understand what the hell 19.2.2.2.1.3x384 was, and they're like, Claris is not following the normal convention, and so there's this discussion about it. So in the event that I have a conversation or thought about this, I will know to go back and find that information where I can find it. Your goal is to see it, memorize the broad strokes, and then know where to get the details if you need the details. So along the way of performance, that's kind of the backstory how we got to this. So this is like, you know nothing and no other reference material is needed, and you can progress your way through the videos, especially the ones with the B's on them. The ones that are still in here in this new section where it says performance, it's like a new section. This is all really, really good end to end. And if you're a senior developer, pretty much you know all this. If you don't know it all, then I hate to break it to you, you're probably not a senior developer. So because this is what I would consider low-hanging fruit. A senior developer is someone who's built solutions, not just for 5 people, but they built solutions for 15, 20, 30 people, 40, 50 people, 60 people. And they've seen the results of bad design in performance and execution. That's why Nick talks about this all the time, right? He's such a big guy on lean design performance. So, yeah, the best experienced people are the ones who've, listen, if you haven't had your act in failing, right? It's like Michael Jordan said he learned more from failing than he ever did from winning. And the guy won a lot. But that being said, famous basketball guy used to be the amazing basketball player. Everyone knew who he was. And he kind of got older and retired, but he's still, I don't even think he's 50 yet. Maybe he's 50, but he's about our age, and he really is amazing in terms of made a lot of money, reinvesting, bought some sports teams, helped guiding those organizations, doing a great job. But he said he learned more from failure. If you haven't failed in building a FileMaker solution, you're probably not a senior developer, right? It's kind of how that works. So, cool. So questions along the way about performance. So I'm kind of open-ended topic on performance. And if you don't have anything here, then I will just kind of dive into a little bit of this, some low-hanging fruit, the very basics of how some of this works. Because some of you don't know what's in here, right? Because you haven't watched it. You've paid for the training, but you haven't watched it. So Elzo says he watches the videos like 2 or 3 times. And he watches it first, beginning to understand the context, 2, to understand, to dig in, to take notes, probably to get more details out of it. And then he'll watch it down the road a little bit. I have videos, for example, like the other day we were talking with Christian, I think, and we were talking about making apps that don't suck, right? It was the video from Mike Lee, who's a really fantastic guy, and he was talking about making apps that don't suck. And basically that kind of interface. And Christian, that's one of my favorite videos. And I think it's so relevant that I rewatch it every 6 to 12 months, just on general principle, because I want that to be fresh. I want to understand, the road to making a bad application. There it is, right there. The road to making a bad application. I mean, it goes. The critical element from this video, right, and it's the thing to understand, and it plays into performance here as well, is marketing and salespeople don't like saying, "Oh, making apps that don't suck," because that's not very, G-rated, and we want to be G and be positive and all that. And so they say the title of the webinar should be "Making Great Apps That Are Great." But unfortunately, and I'm quoting Mike Lee here, is that the formula for making an app that sucks starts with calling the app that you're making great, right? So the critical essential piece of the formula for making an app that does suck, which is bad, is saying, "Oh, we're making great apps. This is a great app," right? That is the critical thing. So by you even naming it, "We're making great apps," you're already on the road to hell, right? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and you're on that road big time. Big time. So one way of being, let's get real with the conversation, is to admit that most apps suck. And the goal is to, when you make an updated version of your product, to endeavor to make your app suck less. So what are the things you're going to do to make your app suck less? Very important. That also plays into performance. If your app, if you click something on your screen, for example, if you come over here and you press this button right here, and we say, "Download this video, download this," right? And then there's this delay. And if this takes 5 or 10 seconds, then that's okay. But then if it takes more than 10 seconds, which some of these updates do, they take more than 10 seconds, then we have an app that sucks. It definitely sucks here. This isn't awesome. It should do this asynchronously, or should do it faster, do something. So this is build 45 of our player. Guess what? There's a build 45 on our player. We're actually going to keep track of the videos that you have and the videos that are online, and we're going to synchronize those with a little bit of an algorithm. It's more work, it takes more time, but I'm endeavoring to make a training app that sucks less. And in this case, it's a performance issue. It's performance, right? Airtable. Airtable is a classic case of an application. So this is what happens. So Airtable's been around, I think, for 3-4 years, and they haven't gone away. Now, back 5 years ago, when Airtable first came out, there was a whole wrath of 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 companies that we're all going to be low code. We're going to be low code. We're going to be no code. And then almost all those companies have gone out of business because they don't have a model for making money, profits. And so Airtable's managed to survive, right? But the problem is that it does a handful of things that are much better than FileMaker. It's way cheaper than FileMaker. But for example, we're talking about Megan and Jake in here, and the things they do with their business, doing basically processing of insurance or some sort of estimating or whatever you guys do. But the point is that you hit the wall with what it doesn't do, and as soon as you need to do anything very technical, it instantly gets into very serious coding and programming, if it can do it at all. So yeah, so it's not really a conversation about the competitors, only in that understand that they don't have this problem because they haven't been around long enough to have videos that go out on YouTube and then have them deprecated because the marketing logo or the lingo in it is not accurate, right? Which was the point. So I started a conversation about competition. Clearly, you folks are more interested in that, but I wanted to come back and talk about the performance issues and having your mindset correct about that. If we go into the performance training, let me just cover. Let me go down here to performance section, which is the 1000 section of videos. There's critical issues, and this is kind of somewhat new. People talk about it, but I'll just simply point it out with the guy with the mouth open right here. And that is data optimization of moving data is a major optimizing thing that you need to think about, is what caused the data to move between the server and your client. Very, very important. But that used to be the entire focus of the performance optimization. And Claris, is, knowing that it was the #1 issue, has been working to take that out of play. And so what ends up happening is that they start to cache the data. They start to do this whole thing where if you see it right here, it spins. And then as you download data, your local client caches it and keeps that data. Really super useful. This has been improved over and over and over again. And it's so useful and so good at this point that a lot of times you run into performance problems because you're running into the issue of churn. And so the cache is so great that your FileMaker problem that you run into, if I can like kill that, the FileMaker problem that you're going to run into is not so much that you're waiting for the data to come down, is that right here is the churn concept, is that the FileMaker data you already have is local. It's hidden on your hard drive or on the flash memory of your device, and FileMaker just has to chew through it and process it. So it's like these people, here, let me pay that a little bit more, so it's churning the data it already has, and it's got so much data churn that there is a measurable stopwatch delay in the process, right? So and so it's very important to understand that you can have the data, it's cached down locally on your computer. But if you have like a lot of conditional formatting, like people do conditional, all this conditional formatting and a bunch of is hidden calculations on the screen, and that can cause processing problems. Also, running a summary or a sort on data that's already been cached downhill still will cause a performance problem because FileMaker has to churn it out. It has to generate the results. If it has to download it and churn it, that's really bad. If it has to churn it, but it's still local, but you're churning 50, 100,000 records, which can easily happen, then that's another performance problem right there. So these are all issues that if you have a local file are not really an issue. If you have a FileMaker server that's in your office and you have 3 users, it's probably not an issue, although you might start to see it a little bit. People start to see this acutely when they have a lot of users or they take their FileMaker solution and they put it up on a cloud server, up on Amazon, somewhere. Just because it's on Amazon doesn't mean your FileMaker server is going to make you feel happy and warm and fuzzy because it's really fast. The slowdown is not so much that this part is up on Amazon, that's fast. Maybe you have a really fast computer down here. It's this green network spot between the two of you. That's a slowdown, right? Very, 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 very important. The idea is that we've reshot all these videos. You really, if you think you know performance, and you're experiencing it, and listen, if you're not experiencing any performance problems, then either you're not pushing it very hard or you've already mastered this material. If you haven't mastered this material, it means you're not pushing FileMaker very hard. When you start to push it harder with more people, with larger groups of data up on the cloud, on the network, then you're going to see a slowdown. You'll see progress bars and things. That's where you're going to want to come back and really visit this content, right? Maybe only do it when you need to, but this is stuff that, for example, if I put Kyle in here, we interrogate him, tie him to a chair, waterboard him a little bit, and make him answer performance questions, Kyle should be able to answer, basically, he wouldn't phrase it the way we phrase it, but he would be able to answer and articulate all the issues that are going on here and be able to talk about it intelligently, right? That's kind of the thing, right? So that's what we would expect, right? Claris really doesn't test on this in the certification test, right? That's another area that's kind of squishy. They decided that the new certification test is not going to be a 19 test or a 20 test. It's just the test, and then I guess you take the test once ever, and then you're certified for life or something. Yeah, that's kind of one of the conversations. David Angel says, if I use one theme for layouts reports, a minimal theme is that will slow down the program. No, a minimal theme will generally make things faster. Keep in mind that every theme that you use is stored in the FileMaker file itself, the FMP12 file. They're really not very fat overall. What you want to stay away from is using what I would call the classic theme. So if I go to work files over here, I pop this open. If I open up, I don't even know what this solution. Oh, here's a solution here that we were using. We were training on FileMaker Go and providing training on where features were at, or Pro Go, or containers. It was a container conversation, right? And so if hang on one second. Where do you go? Oh, themes. That's right. So if I go to layout mode over here, you can see the theme that's being used right here. It's the Enlighten theme, right? So if you go layouts, change theme right here under layout, you can bring this up. You can see the themes that are involved. You can't even really get to the classic theme deliberately anymore. It's a legacy theme. So it's in the system. It will come on by default if you have a legacy older FileMaker file, but you can't deliberately select it for a new layout. You'd have to duplicate an existing classic layout to use it. It's really fat, like double the weight of all the other ones. So you want a very light, fluffy theme to use, and then of course feel free to customize it. Themes is one of the areas that Nick has felt has been underserved by the FileMaker, by the folks at Claris, but you know, once again, I'm not Nick. I don't lose sleep at night over the themes because if I need a special thing, we just create our own, right? But mostly we just use what they have. But if you're an artist, that's like saying you can only have, you know, your paintbrushes. You have one kind of paintbrush. Me, if I have a standard size paintbrush and I have to do something a lot of fill with it, then I'm gonna have to move my hand really fast to fill in. Right, but Nick would be like, "Oh, I just want the fill tool or something," right? So he wants the right tool for the right job. Margaret, do you have any thoughts on this while we're here talking? Then I can, while you're talking, since this is like a big Hollywood trick. When someone's talking, then the other person can run and get a drink, right? So 1, 2, 3, Margaret, go.
Okay, cool. Not really much I can add that you haven't already said on it beyond the fact that the new updated videos are very pretty and that I've seen them.
Keep going, I'm drinking.
Okay, how do you all feel about cats?
Yeah, so so anyway, so the best to utilize the theme to minimize data. Yeah, exactly. So themes are, I consider themes a low, I don't want to say low risk, but they're really kind of a they're like, for me, a non-topic, right? You can optimize the thing, make it light. If you watch our training, we talk about using probably under advanced layout techniques under here, making layouts perform faster. And we actually got out a stopwatch and did all this. And so custom themes and shared styles, that's one of the churn things. So a lot of churning is when you're spinning on existing data it has, even if you download all of it, it's running locally, you can run into this thing called the churn, right? And so you have this churn problem that's going on. And one of the things that can churn on is a classic layout. So we've had a customer on Windows machines, and they had a bunch of classic themes, and the customer is one of these people that reads like Claris will say, "What are the minimum specs for using FileMaker?" And it says something like, "You can use FileMaker, you could use what were the minimum specs of Windows, right?" And it says, "Well, you can use Windows 98 with 512 megabytes of RAM or something, right?" That's a little bit extreme, but they will say stuff like that, right? Where I consider a minimum workstation anymore, really, for any of you who are doing serious work, is 16 gigs of memory. If you have 8, you're probably having a slowdown that's unnecessary, right? But so Claire says, "Oh, you can have a user with 1 gigabyte of memory," right? And so the customer goes, "Oh, you are so awesome. We have these like Windows machines from 1912 and the Pony Express dropped them off. We didn't know what to do with them. So we're going to put them on everyone's desk." And so then they're waiting and they press a button and then it like beach balls or whatever you call it on Windows when it just does nothing, right? And so we had to have the engineer who's in my office. I think he's in the office today. Had to rebuild all the layouts, and when he rebuilt them off of classic onto a normal, like a Enlighten theme or something, all that churning went away and the performance became acceptable. Performance organization, I'm developing an app that will capture millions of records from web inputs. The record is processed and sent via API to an external destination as it comes in. I will need to query the records like line items of an invoice and display in a web portal, not inside them. I'm thinking of using MySQL for the database, ODP for slower FileMaker access. Your thoughts? Yeah, it depends on the number of API calls. So this is a good one. It's a good question. So basically, you have a FileMaker engine up in the cloud. So once again, I'm going to draw my little diagram out here. So this is a FileMaker engine, and Oregon Dean says he's going to send capture millions of records of web inputs. Okay, so this is your FileMaker server, and it's appropriately level of performance on Amazon. Let's assume it's on Amazon. Can it take millions of records? Yes. You don't have to get rid of FileMaker. So at what point would you want to use an SQL system? Well, you want to stay on FileMaker unless you're actually outside of FileMaker's lane, shall we say. Once again, we talked about the electric, if an electric bike, Jacob's electric bike going to Costco is Airtable, then, which is cool, but it's got limited utility. And then if you have like a Ford truck or whatever you guys, if you're in Europe, a Mercedes-Benz small lorry of some type, right, can carry, a ton of material, 2 tons of material, something like that. That's FileMaker. And then like a giant 18-wheeler that carries 12 tons is like a big giant SQL system. So you want to buy the technology that's appropriate. You don't buy the 12-ton, if you're going to go to the grocery store for the family, you don't need an 18-wheel semi-truck to do it, right, with the trailer on there. Trying to parallel park that thing ought to be a real, right? So you don't want that. But if you're going to go to the grocery store and you want to take on, 20 pallets of cigarettes because you're going to be pimping them on eBay or something, yeah, you can't do that in your pickup truck. You need to get that semi for that. So millions of records, okay, with FileMaker. How many records per hour or per minute will you be collecting? That is the question you have to ask yourself, right? And it is a record. What is a record data? Is it 3 bits, 3 tables of information like a 0, 1, a date, and a primary key? Or is one record of data 1,000 fields wide? Does the rest of the FileMaker application slow if a large table is part of solution? So what I would do is I would, on my solution, if I was collecting it in FileMaker, I would collect the data in a separate table, okay? Separate table. Not just a separate table, separate file, okay? Separate file, and then the rest of your system would run parallel to that. And that way, if you have to do a backup, you can run backups that are specific to certain files. You could run one backup a certain way, etc., things like that. But yeah, if you're going to have, so the custom web publishing engine, which basically drives the data API, etc., there's this under the hood coding. FileMaker certified that for 400 simultaneous connections. So you could have 400 people simultaneously feeding data into FileMaker without it breaking and melting down. That's because they re-engineered it somewhere around the 12th time frame. And they needed to do that because it couldn't support WebDirect without that. There was some serious performance problems with the platform prior to that. And it was because the guy who wrote it in FileMaker 7, everyone said he screwed it up, but then he quit and left, and no one wanted to reverse engineer his mess, so they kind of left it in the product. And it's why FileMaker 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 all had huge custom web publishing performance problems, right? People tried to build e-commerce solutions in FileMaker and FileMaker 10, and you couldn't handle simultaneous people because the performance would logarithmically fail. So if you have a logarithmic chart going the other way, a logarithmic chart. So this is over time, or this the time delay is the number of people. One person does it quick, 5 people, then 12 people, 50, 30 people simultaneously. The performance would logarithmically fail, and the delay would be huge. They fixed that. So as you scale the data, total rate users, when does FileMaker become too limited, right? Well, I frequently see 15, 20 gigabyte database files. We have a couple people with 50 gigabyte database files. That's not really a problem. I have a customer with 180 gigabyte database, and I know that they have under-invested on their FileMaker server. That concerns me. So we have an investigation trying to figure out how it got to 180 gigabytes because we're not quite sure how that happened. There's no containers involved. So it's just data. So I have a suspicion there might be a bad table in there that is arbitrarily taking up space and it shouldn't be. And so we're doing an investigation on that. That being said, when you start dealing with database files that are bigger than the size of some hard drives or solid state drives, then I get nervous about that, right? So so would 100 terabytes of external, okay, yeah, but it's not 100 terabytes is not the, okay, back up. So let's talk about containers and performance. So previously with Organdine, we're talking about text data in FileMaker, record data, okay? If you're talking about external data, containers and videos and things like that, if you want to have 100 terabytes, which is a big number, I don't know, Stu, are you being flip with that? Or are you saying you really have 100 terabytes, right, is my question, right? So, and Moki asked another Not flip. Okay. Then what you want to do is that you have the FileMaker data, and I would go to 360works and I would license their Super Container product. Super Container is a predecessor to the remote containers that are in the product right now. The remote containers are great, but I wouldn't managing them with 500 gigs or a terabyte of documents would be about as much as I'd want to do, because it's on the same FileMaker server. When you have 100 terabytes, you want that on its own machine, separated, right? So you would use a separate machine for that, or you have two FileMaker servers. One FileMaker server is running your data files. The other FileMaker server has a single data file with an attached but external containers. That makes sense. So either use, because Super Container, which was the great thing, which Claris didn't support, was that you could use a separate server. So you have FileMaker server, Super Container server, separate hardware with separate processors. You can upsize them independently, things like that. So if you have 100 terabytes of video and you got 10K, yeah, I would just it has to be on a separate server. So either you have two FileMaker servers and with at least two FileMaker files that are relationally connected, two FileMaker files, or one FileMaker server, one Super Container server, and then you could connect it through the web viewer. The thing is with Super Containers that you go through the web viewer, and then sometimes you get weird behavior on Windows. And we're about to really soon, any day, probably with the release of FileMaker 19.3, which I now understand is not going to be called 19.3, I guess. But whatever the 19.3 one is that they're going to rename to whatever, I guess, I don't know. I haven't been told. But that's like the May thing that they're going to try to do, I guess. That should have the new Chromium web viewer engine in it, right? For all of you who've been living with IE11 web viewers, so if you were using Super Container and that new version of FileMaker comes out, will Super Container behave well with that, right? Or does 360works have to release with that, right? Between you and me, I have a higher level of confidence in 360works to patch their bugs than I do with Claris to timely patch their bugs. I think Jesse Barnum at 360works, why the guy comes on here, why Joe Martin comes on here, these people come on here. I have a higher level of trust in him. When I call, for starters, I just can't call the CEO of Claris and talk to him, right, and tell me he has a bug, he has to fix it. Jesse will take my call. Well, I'm just telling you how I would solve it. See, after doing this for 31 years, like, for example, San Francisco Giants came to us, right, the baseball team, and they've have historical photos. And it was before FileMaker came out with remote containers, so before FileMaker 12. So I met with them in the FileMaker 10, 11 days, and they were using Super Container, and they had at that time, 2005 or whatever it is, they had 5 terabytes of Super Container data, and they wanted to know what they were doing and should they make it better. And I said, well, put a better drive array on here and make sure, because they didn't have any backups. Their entire backup strategy, we walked through this last week, where IT people says, you've got RAID, so therefore it's backed up, because if a drive fails, you're protected, which is partially true. Not completely true, partially true. And so if someone inadvertently executes a delete command, you still lose everything, right? So it's not really, RAID is not really a backup. They only had RAID at the time. This is 15 years ago. People aren't probably even there anymore. But they were using FileMaker, and so they needed to get past the RAID and have snapshots and things like that, and they didn't have them. So it was me having a conversation with them about doing that. So Super Container's been around for a while, but it runs through the web viewer, so it always has this almost like this little bit of a web JavaScript kind of, feel to it, it tends to break. It tends to break more often than the FileMaker containers, but for large deployments, you want to have separate servers. It lends itself that much better. I'll catch you tomorrow, but yeah, definitely check out. So once again, the upcoming schedule real quick. I know people are wondering about that, but the upcoming schedule, Anchor Buoy next 2 days. So we'll be on topic on that. That'll be pretty easy to stay on topic. So if people ask about things, we can do other stuff. But yeah, we should do custom themes, shared styles, and custom themes and shared styles, Margaret. Okay, and add that to the schedule. That would be at least one full day. At least a full day. Well, I'll talk to Nick about that. Okay.
Thank you, TK. Yep. No, I will. I'll add that to the live stream schedule.
Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. That's it for now. Appreciate everyone. See you. Bye.
just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Trying to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.